Hello. This is part two about my story, how I dated a mama's boy. And so I think where I left off was Kyle asking me to be his girlfriend, and I hesitated, but eventually I said yes. So um, so yeah, for the first few months that I was dating Kyle, things seemed okay. I want to say that when we were like already like a month together, that I I met his mom. It might have been sooner than that. I honestly don't remember. It was quite a while ago. But I remember meeting his mom, and um, one of the first things she asked me is about my son, and she said, "Oh, like you have like a little boy, right? Like how old is he?" And I told her that he was about to turn one, or that he was already 1 years old. And she herself advised me that she didn't think her son Kyle was mature enough to date somebody, uh, to date a single mom, because she felt that he just wasn't mature for someone in that situation or stage of life. And at first, I kind of was taken aback, like, like I guess I see what she's trying to say, but we'll see what happens. Like, I'm not just gonna take her word for it, without seeing it for myself, and then dumping him because his mom told me to, right? And one thing that kind of struck me odd about his mom in the beginning, um, we had put on Facebook that we were in a relationship together, and before I even met his mom, she put like this GIF like I'm watching you, directed at me, as if I'm the one that she should be concerned about. It's usually the other way around, like a father tries to watch out for the guy that his daughter is dating, but this time it was reversed, like, you know, like as if I was somebody that she should be like keeping a close eye on, which was a little um, cringe and a little not a little, but a pretty big red flag. And I didn't say anything. I just kept it to myself, but it was definitely something that struck me as very odd. So, um, so a little backstory about Kyle's family. Uh, Kyle tried going to community college, but he dropped out. And at the time, he was just working because his mother was living off of disability or social security or something, because after her heart attack, I think she couldn't work because she had very bad circulation problems. She had peripheral artery disease. That much I know for sure, because if she was on her feet for too long, her legs would swell really bad. And during the time that I was dating Kyle, she was scheduled to get a gastric bypass surgery. And I studied nutrition. I'm actually a registered dietitian, so I'm very familiar with people that have gastric bypass surgery, and what they're supposed to eat, and what kind of diet they're supposed to follow. So, I told his mom, like, if you have any questions about the gastric bypass diet, you can let me know, because you're going to be very delicate the first few months. You can't just eat whatever you want. But she was under the impression that instead of exercising and losing weight, because 90% of her arteries were clogged from a very high fat diet, she thought that gastric bypass was a way for her to eat whatever she wanted, just in small amounts. And I'm pretty sure the doctors or the physicians told her that's not what the surgery is meant for. Guys, by the way, like gastric bypass, you still have to eat healthy. The only difference between having a normal stomach and having your stomach, you know, cut in half into the size of into the size of a baseball, basically, is that your body's gonna give you consequences if you don't eat the food you're supposed to. And it's not fun. Basically, like your body makes you pay for not eating what you're supposed to be eating. So, um, his mom had the surgery when early on in the relationship, and she kept going in and out of the hospital because she wasn't eating things she was supposed to eat. And his mom never really respected me as a dietitian, even though I would try to help her. Like if she had anemia and her protein levels were low, I would recommend food for her to eat that she can tolerate. But she never every time she would talk to me, she'd be like, "Oh, like I'm supposed to be eating this, like are you aware that I'm supposed to be eating this or eating that?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm very aware. Like I've been doing this for quite a few years. Like I didn't just graduate, and I'm not a novice in my field, despite how I look. I look younger than my age, but like I'm very knowledgeable." So his mother never respected like my profession, and neither did his family really. I think they thought I was like, I think they I think they probably thought all I did was just give diets all day. Um, but when you're a clinical dietitian, you're basically like it's you're a clinician, so basically like you can work with very complicated cases. And what happens when you get gastric bypass surgery, you're in danger of experiencing what's called dumping syndrome. And dumping syndrome is basically when your stomach digests food way too quickly, and it goes from your stomach to your small intestine where the absorption takes place, and you have a sudden shift in electrolytes, which can really stress out your body, to put it mildly, and it can become dangerous because your electrolytes have to be at a certain level. I'm sorry, my cat's in the way. Um, you have to be at a certain level, so if it's too low or too high, it can cause really bad complications in your body. And so, his family never really respected me and what I did, because I often found them trying to explain to me things that I already knew like the back of my hand, like diabetes or what she should and shouldn't eat. And a lot of the times I would just keep my mouth shut because his family were the kind of people that only went to the doctor when they were really sick. And his mother had like a lot of dogs, and there was one dog that really looked like he had cancer, and he obviously looked like that he was in a lot of pain because he was all skin and bones, and then he had something that looked like a tumor hanging, like a really big tumor hanging from his belly. And I was taken aback, and when I asked his mother, like, why don't you take that dog to the vet? It really looks like he has cancer. And she would reassure me that it's not cancerous and that he was fine. And clearly, this dog did not look fine. He looked like he was in agony. He looked like he was in pain. So I was getting a lot of bad vibes from his family. His mother was the kind of person that would always try to cut corners in life. She never liked to listen to authority. She would prepare people's taxes, but she wasn't an accountant. And she had no education behind it. And her reasoning was she was trying to steal from the rich and give to the poor, or because the government apparently the government tries to screw people over, so she tried to screw the government back by trying to give people a really big refund that they probably shouldn't even be getting. So yeah, his mom was really shady. She was she was very crooked. She was always trying to get away with stuff that she really shouldn't be trying to get away with. Like, very childish woman, and she was middle aged. So I started to see more and more the toxic dynamic between Kyle and his mother, because early on in the relationship I saw that his mother was handling his finances. When I was dating Kyle, Kyle was pretty much very much an adult. You know, he was 29, 30 years old. He didn't even have his own bank account. And when I would question him, like, why don't you have your own bank account if you've been working, like, after high school? Like, where does all your money go? And he said, like, oh, my mom takes care of it. And I'd be like, what do you mean your mom takes care of it? Like, why can't you do it? And he would just be like, well, that's just the way we've been doing it. She's just been handling my money for me. And that was so bad. When I heard that, I was in shock. I'm like, Kyle, you're 29 years old and your mom is handling your money for you like you're 13 years old? Like, that's not normal. And he didn't question it. Kyle had the mentality that mother knows best. And I also saw it with his big brother too. Like, both Kyle and his older brother were pretty much putting their life on hold to take care of their mom. Now, I am not saying that people shouldn't take care of their mom. You know, like, obviously, you know, if you have a really good relationship with your parents and, you know, they've always been there for you and they take care of you, of course, you know, take care of your parents. But it was not a healthy way they were going about it. And yeah, like, when I would talk to his mother, she would say a lot of things that were very, like, how can I say, like, disturbing. Like, Kyle comes from a divorced family. Kyle is the youngest. He has an older brother and an older sister that are both gay. And his mom made it very vocal how she was against homosexuality. Most people in the Mexican culture that were raised old school are not very pro LGBTQIA, because of a very conservative and Catholic reasons. So both Kyle's older siblings are gay. His sister's a lesbian, and his older brother is gay. You know, they both have partners of the same gender. And their mom was very vocal on how she wishes that her children weren't gay, which to me was kind of messed up. You know, I would definitely not tell my children that I wished you weren't gay. Like, that would make my life, like, so much easier. You know, it's just, it's not nice. It's not a nice thing to say about your children. Um, and so I could tell Kyle's older brother had, like, this love-hate relationship with his mother. He Kyle's older brother, I'm just gonna call him Peter. Kyle's older brother Peter was very, very obviously, you know, very gay. You know, um, he would treat me nice most of the time, but I could tell that Kyle's older brother Peter was doing most of the work and taking care of their mother. Like, one time, Kyle's mother, several times she had to go to the hospital because she wasn't feeling good, or she wouldn't stop throwing up because she was eating things she wasn't supposed to. And so she was always in and out of the hospital for the first few months because, I mean, one time she did get food poisoning, and that wasn't her fault. But there was other times she wouldn't stop vomiting, and she would have to stay for, like, a few hours or a day, or a time where her GI was just so messed up she had to get um, like a transfusion of healthy bacteria in her stomach because she kept having a lot of diarrhea. So um, Peter was the one doing most of the work, taking care of their mother. There was a time she came home with like a tube feeding where they put a tube from your nose or mouth all the way down to your small intestine because you're not able to eat through your stomach or through your mouth. So she had that tube for like a week, and Peter was the one that would take care of the feeding and give her water through the tube and things like that, like on the clock. So when I was first dating Kyle, he told me that until his mother dies, that he was not gonna get married or live with anybody else. Which to me was a big red flag, and basically like probably the most mama's boy thing you could ever say to your partner was, I am not willing to move out and live with any other woman until my mother dies. And yeah, that was pretty messed up. So um as time went by, I really went out of my way to try to be a part of Kyle's family, to show him that I care about him, and by showing his mother that I cared about her too. And I did care about her, but I wasn't stupid. I knew that Kyle's mother didn't like me because it was very obvious to me Kyle's mother was doing a lot of things to make him codependent on her. Sorry, that was my cat. Kyle's mom was doing a lot of things on purpose to make him codependent on her, like the whole handling his financial affairs, like not even wanting him to drive on the expressway because she felt it was too dangerous for him, despite him being, a grown man who should be able to drive in the expressway. When I met Kyle, Kyle didn't even have a driver's license, and he didn't. I'm sorry. Kyle didn't have a driver's license, and he didn't um, have any plans on getting it anytime soon. So when I would ask him, like, why don't you have a car? He'd tell me, well, it's because I don't have a driver's license. And I would tell him, why don't you get a driver's license? Well, because I don't have money to buy a car. And I'm like, so it was like excuse after excuse of him, like, finding reasons not to, like, be his own person or be independent. And even there was a time we took a trip to the beach, which the beach where I live is about an hour away on the expressway, and his mother drove the whole way even though she wasn't feeling good. And when Kyle offered to drive us there, she would say no. It's you're not ready to drive on the expressway, despite him being 29, 30 years old and pretty much being able to drive. Um, but Kyle told me that his mother wouldn't even let him drive until he was like much older. So, like I said, I would see a lot of things she would do to make him codependent on her. Like she still treated him like he was a child, which eventually was very tiresome for me because I had a son. Kyle never took into consideration that I was living alone. I lived on the second floor of my apartment complex, and I was working a lot. I was working what I could. Um, I would leave my son with my mom while I would go to work, and then I would pick him up, and I would still I would cook and I would clean and I would do a lot of things. And if I one of the things Kyle really didn't get was, as a single mom or even single parents in general, we we are tired. We're exhausted because as soon as we come home, like, it's not like we can just relax and stay on the couch and just watch our children play by themselves. Like, no, like, you have to feed your child, you have to brush their teeth, you have to change them, you have to make sure that they're not doing anything dangerous, especially toddlers, that they like to put everything in their mouth. um, and cooking and cleaning, and then going straight to bed, to trying to put your children to bed. Like, you you come home to basically clock into your second job. So it was very I didn't have enough energy most of the time to like really sustain myself, to basically whatever little energy I had left, I would give it to Kyle. And if I wanted to spend time alone with him, I would, we wanted to go out on dates, just the two of us. I would drop my son off with my mom so we can, have quality time, which, always made me feel guilty, because my son was still little. And, like, it feels like I should be giving my son 100% of my time and my devotion, but I can't, because, I have a boyfriend, and I have a job, and I have other things to do throughout the day. And Kyle never took into account how much I was investing in him and doing for him. That, you know, it's not simple dating somebody else when you're a parent, because the time you can be putting into your child, you're putting into someone else. And it takes a toll on you, and it takes a toll on your child. So he was always giving me excuses of why he couldn't help me out. Like, there was a time that I asked him, like, hey, can you help me, like, go grocery shopping or anything? Like, I never asked Kyle for money. The most I would ask him was to pay for our dates, because, most of my money was going to bills, was going to the rent, for food for my son. And whenever I would ask Kyle to help me, like, with something small, he would tell me, like, well, I don't live with you. I live with my family, so because I live with my family, I should help them out, not you. And it took me a while to realize that he was basically saying that my family comes first and you come last, which is the way that he grew up thinking, right? So Kyle's parents divorced when he was pretty young. He doesn't really have a relationship with his father, so it was basically a lot of his mom's influence throughout his life. Kyle was a big gamer. He was very competitive with video games. He liked to enter tournaments, and he was good. He was good at competitions with games, and he was very passionate about these things. But as far as work and education, Kyle still pretty much had the mentality of like a teenager, where if he could get paid to do nothing, he would, which to me was a really big turnoff, because that meant that he was lazy. And I wanted to date a hard worker, and the more I started to get to know Kyle, the more I realized that he's not the right person for me if I want something serious and long term, because I needed someone that was willing to be my equal, to be my partner, like, I didn't want somebody to come into my life and just give me more work to do. And that's how it felt dating Kyle. It felt like I was raising a teenager with Kyle, because a lot of the things that he should have gotten done in his 20s, or even when he was a teenager, he didn't get done. And I was way more accomplished. I was way more educated than him. And I tried not to let it get to me, but I wanted to date him for who he was. Like, and at the time, it looked like he was really into me. It looked like he would give me, for my birthday and for Christmas, he would give me these really thoughtful gifts. And in the beginning, he did message me a lot, but it started dwindling down to, like, he would only text me once in the morning, and then only, like, want to see me, like, on the weekends when I was free. And sometimes he would come over out of the blue, but because at the time he didn't have a car, he basically needed to have someone pick him up or drop him off. So it was a little irritating. And I would pressure and pressure and pressure him to get his license and to get a car. And to the point where I told him, if by the time you don't turn 30 and you don't get your own car, like, I'm gonna leave you. Because this is just ridiculous. Like Kyle was living with his mother. So, yes, part of his money went to like utilities and the rent and things like that. But what I didn't agree with was that his mother would take most of his money and then put like a little bit into his savings account, which I think, first of all, she shouldn't even be doing that. If Kyle is a grown man, he should be taking care of that himself. And I'm not saying like don't that he shouldn't have been paying anything at all, but obviously Kyle's mom was taking most of the money, and he felt that it was okay because it was his mom, and she raised 3 kids by herself, and it's what she deserves. Which, okay, sure, but you know, it just came down to, like, when we had our first date, how he didn't even have enough money to pay for a meal for both of us, because his mom would take most of the money. So it was very concerning for me how much his mother wanted to control his life and how much he let it happen. And my own mother tried warning me, like, don't date a mama's boy, because you know she's not gonna want him to leave the house. She's obviously way too attached to him, and she's gonna see you as an enemy, because you're gonna want to influence him to be independent and be more of a man for you, and she's not gonna like that, and she's gonna make your life miserable. And yeah, my mother was right. That's exactly what happened. And at 6 months together, I even tried to break up with Kyle, telling him like, hey, it's very obvious to me that your family, that you feel caught between your relationship with me and your relationship with your family. It's very obvious your family wants you to pick them over me, and I just don't want to be in that position. So I think it's best that we just part ways. And this was when we were like 6 months together, and Kyle was like, no, it's not that, like, I really love you, like, let's work it out, like, yes, I just want to be there for my family, and I just want everybody to get along, I want everybody to win, which is a very naive way of thinking, because you can't please everybody. So you should just do what you think is right for your life. And if Kyle wanted to just focus on his mom, fine, so be it. But I didn't want to be lowering my standards in a partner of what I needed to just please his family, so his family would have the advantage. Like, no, so it's okay for me and my son to suffer so long as your family is thriving. Like, that's not fair. Then don't date me. And he just never understood that. I know Kyle was really stressed because, I wanted him to be a certain way and his family wanted him to do certain things for them, and he felt caught in the middle. So I did try to let him go. I did try to break up with him, but he didn't want me to leave the relationship, and he promised me that, things would be better after that, and that I didn't have to, I didn't, that he didn't have to be like caught in the middle. That he was really serious about me, that he felt that I was his future wife, that he can see himself like having a family with me, and so on and so forth. So I believed them, and even though in the beginning I just wanted our relationship to be casual, I did start to really like him. I did start to have like a lot of fun with him, and I feel like we had really good chemistry. So this was part 2. I'll talk a little more about this in part 3. So it's already 30 minutes, so yeah, be prepared for part 3 of Dating a Mama's Boy.